Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this second business session of the association. I want to call our meeting to order. And I want to begin and say that on behalf of the board, the association board, I want to share our gratitude to the members of the Redevelopment Task Force and to congratulate them on the wonderful achievement of the standards. It is a wonderful day today, and our great gratitude goes out to all of the members of the task force and the members of the commission, everyone who was involved, of course, the staff, in helping us realize this momentous occasion. Leanne did note, for those of you who were here at the earlier session of the commission, session 2 of the commission meeting, she did note that there were two announcements. I want to repeat those announcements for those who were not able to be with us earlier at 11 o'clock. The first is a happy one, and that is that the ATS staff has been hosting a watching party. It has had 25 to 30 persons in each session, and those on the watching party include current and former ATS staff members, including Dan Elshire. Hello, Dan. Members of the Board of Commissioners, the Board of Directors, and the Redevelopment Task Force. So I want to also recognize all of you and thank you as well. I also want to note, sadly, that we found out from an announcement that Chris Coble sent out earlier this morning that one of our colleagues, John Wimmer, whose work with the endowment significantly enhanced the work of theological schools as the program director of the religion division of the Lilly Endowment, he died early this morning after a long and heroic fight against cancer. So our prayers are with his family and with all at the Lilly Endowment as we think about him during this time. Now, as we move on to our business, I want to call upon Jeffrey Kent, our judge of election, and ask him whether or not we have a quorum for our meeting.
Yes, we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And we can now proceed to the business of session 2 for the association. And the first part of our business is the opportunity to elect officers and members of the Board of Directors and the Audit Committee. The slate can be found beginning on page 141 of your program book. I want to remind all of us that the slate was presented yesterday and the nominations were closed yesterday. Therefore, this is going to be a simple majority vote. Let me introduce Peter Vicari, Chair of the Association Nominating Committee. He will move on behalf of the nominating committee this slate. Peter.
Brian, I believe that we lost Peter on the Zoom call here. Again, I, as a staff person, would be able to give the report of the slate and just to restate the slate. And then we would probably need a board member from the ATS Board of Directors. I do note that Jay Twern is also on the panel. He could make the motion on behalf of the board, but we would need a board member to make that motion in Peter's absence. Since the board is actually the one, it would be from the nominating committee, but the board of directors did receive the report from the nominating committee. So let me go ahead and pull up the slate. We'll share my screen. Okay, so I will present then, this is the slate that was offered yesterday for the association, the ATS Board of Directors. This is the slate of officers that was proposed by the nominating committee, chaired by Peter Vicari. Those officers are President Mark Young of Denver Seminary. For Vice President, Mary McCormick of St. Mary's Seminary and Graduate School of Theology. Secretary, Margaret Wenda of Calvin Theological Seminary. Treasurer, Heather Zdanzowitz of Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary. The coordinating committee chair will be ex officio, and that is as past president, Brian Blunt.
All right, thank you, Frank.
Hang on just a second, Brian.
Brian.
For the ATS Board of Directors, nominations for their first term. Ephraim Augusto from New York Theological Seminary. Kent Anderson from Northwest Baptist Seminary. Charisse Gillette, Lexington Theological Seminary. Maria Lu Wong, City Seminary of New York as a public member. And nominations for a second four-year term. Board members would include Virgil Lattimore, President of Hood Theological Seminary. Gary Simpson, Senior Pastor, Concord Baptist Church, Brooklyn, New York, a public member. Sharon Tan, Eden Theological Seminary. Oh, there's Peter. And then, Peter, if you're ready in just a second, you can make the motion. I'm almost finished with the slate here. Okay. And then the nominees for the Audit Committee include Regina Dancy, Hood Theological Seminary, Tom Hines, Pittsburgh Theological Seminary, James Moore, who was just elected as the commission on the Board of Commissioners as Vice Chair and Treasurer, so he will serve ex officio on the Audit Committee. Caleb Peacock, Pentecostal Theological Seminary, and Heather Zadanzowitz, who serves ex officio as the ATS Treasurer. That is the slate.
So thank you, Frank. And again, I apologize for the technical difficulty I had. But at this time, as chair of the nominating committee, I would like to submit these nominees for approval for the 2020-2022 election cycle. We would also like to thank the.
Okay, I think we've lost Peter again. What I would ask, he was speaking the motion, and we do have another member of the nominating committee who serves on the board of directors. So Brian, if you could maybe recognize Timothy Tennant, and we can unmute him, and then he can complete the motion so that this can be before the body.
Thank you, Frank. The chair recognizes Timothy Tennant.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you, Tim.
So yeah, these nominations are before us as presented. I think that Frank, you listed all the names, did you not?
I did, thank you.
Okay, yes. So we put these names before the nomination, names before the committee for consideration.
Thank you, Tim. That does not need a second. We now have the motion, the slate of officers before us. I will ask if there is any discussion. And I'm not hearing from Christopher Thay that there is.
I do not see a hand raised, Brian.
All right, thank you. So let us then move to the vote. If the poll could come up, the poll is before us. Please, you have 1 minute. Start your vote. Please be advised you have 30 seconds. If we've come to the conclusion of our voting, I'll ask for a report from our judge of elections.
Yes, the vote has passed at approximately 99%.
Thank you. I want to congratulate all of the elected individuals. I want to thank the Association Nominating Committee for its work, and we look forward to the term of service for all of the new officers that have been called upon and have volunteered to have responded to the call to share their services with the association. Thank you.
Mr.
next-
President Chair, may we also thank those outgoing members of the Board of Directors? That was also included in Peter's report. So I would like to thank those members of the Board of Directors who who have finished their service.
I agree. Thank you very much for reminding me of that, Frank.
Thank
you to everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you
So
to all
and
those
if I could, I would just like to name those members. Those members
Please.
would include Nancy Bunce, Doris Garcia Rivera, Deborah Mullen, Barbara Reed, Janet Clark, and Chuck Connery. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Frank. The next business is the action on changes to the ATS procedures related to membership, association bylaws, and commission bylaws. I want to remind the membership that these changes to the ATS procedures related to membership, association bylaws, and commission bylaws were presented yesterday in the association's first session. As well, changes to the commission bylaws are included in this motion. And since changes to the commission bylaws require a vote by both the commission and the association, they will also require a 2/3 vote of the members in attendance of the meeting. Let me read the motion. It is found on page 121 of the program book, if you want to turn there. The motion reads, to align with new standards of accreditation and new policies and procedures being voted on at the June 2020 biennial meeting, the ATS Board of Directors recommends that the association membership approves all revisions noted in the following pages to 3 documents. 1, ATS procedures related to membership. 2, association bylaws. And 3, commission bylaws, effective July 1, 2020. Again, it's found on page 121 of the program book. Now, this motion comes with a full endorsement of the ATS Board of Directors. It is presented here as a motion to the membership. It therefore does not require a second. But let me ask now if there is any discussion on this motion.
I do not see any hands raised, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you, Christopher. Since no hands have been raised, we will then move to the vote. I'll ask if the poll could come up. And we will ask you to begin voting. Thirty seconds. And our voting is now closed. And I'll ask the judge of elections if he could report the result.
The vote has passed at 99% yes.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We now have all of that in alignment with the new standards. So we are moving forward July 1. We now move to some celebratory actions to take place. The first is the Women in Leadership Trailblazer Award. I want to invite Mary Young, Director of Leadership Education, to present a brief summary of this award.
Thank you, Brian. As early as 1972, women in leadership was a matter of importance in theological education. And since 1997, ATS has designed intentional educational programming to support women faculty and administrators, and to assist schools in their efforts to include women in leadership positions. In February of 2018, ATS celebrated 20 years of advocacy and support of the unique gifts that women bring and the value their leadership adds to the work of theological schools. The planning and visioning team for that celebration felt the need to mark this legacy of support for women in a way that would provide an ongoing recognition of their work in a public way by establishing a Women in Leadership Award and honoring Sally M. McFaig, former CEO of Vanderbilt University Divinity School in Nashville, Tennessee, as the first recipient. Sally pioneered in this role in 1975 as the first female CEO to serve in an ATS member school. On behalf of the Women in Leadership Advisory Committee, I am pleased to announce the establishment of the Will Trailblazer Award in recognition of women leaders in theological education. This first award honors the legacy of Sally posthumously. The 2018 opening video tribute in the upcoming presentation mentions the award as an annual event. However, this recognition will occur every 2 years, and it commences with this 2020 biennial. At the conclusion of the presentation, there is another video clip from 2018 with current Dean Emily Towns at Vanderbilt Divinity School reading a statement written by Sally, expressing her appreciation at an award being created for women that honors her as its first recipient. Should you not be able to view the presentation clearly now, it has been posted at the public biennial meeting Canvas site. It will also be posted at our ATS website. And now the presentation.
McFaig was born in May 1933 in Quincy, Massachusetts, in the United States. She gained a Bachelor of Arts degree in English Literature in 1955 from Smith College and a Bachelor of Divinity degree from Yale Divinity School in 1959. She then went on to gain a Master of Arts degree at Yale University in 1960 and was awarded her PhD in 1964. A revised version of her doctoral thesis being published in 1966 as Literature and the Christian Life. Sally McFaig is a distinguished theologian who resides in Vancouver, who worked at Vancouver School of Theology, British Columbia, Canada. For 30 years, she taught at the Vanderbilt University Divinity School in Nashville, where she was the Carpenter Professor of Theology. She is a member of the Anglican Church of Canada. for her distinction as the first woman to be dean of a university divinity school, and for her many years of service in theological education. We are pleased to announce the inauguration of an annual Sally McFague Women in Leadership Award. I am deeply honored to have the Leadership Award to Women by the ATS in my name. Back in 1975, when I became the first woman to be dean of an ATS school, things were different from today. There was no #MeToo or Time's Up movement. Women mostly just kept quiet. I did not myself experience blatant misogyny, but I do recall a male theologian who thought he was complimenting me when he said, "You think like a man." I thought to myself, I will only find those words a compliment if I can congratulate you by saying, "You think like a woman." She has not lost her spunk. Good things seem to be happening at that level in ATS schools and in the broader society. But we have many miles yet to travel before we reach the promised land. During my deanship at Vanderbilt University Divinity School, our African American students rightly protested their status at the school. That was hard for me to deal with, as I thought such students would see me as an ally in their movement. But because I was sympathetic to their cause, they figured their requests would get immediate attention. However, I only served 5 years as dean because of the Davis Cup tennis match. No university in the country would accept the tennis match because South Africa's team, one of the contenders, had no black players because of apartheid. However, Vanderbilt did accept sponsoring the match, and all of us at the Divinity School protested the university's decision with several months of speeches and marches. Because of my prominent participation in the protests, when the event was over, I was told by university officials that as long as I was dean
and Dean of the Divinity School, the university could not raise any more money for the school. So I resigned to return to teaching. The Time's Up movement is pressing our society and the ATS with its banner cry of equality for all. I am grateful for my years as dean at an ATS school and the many subsequent years as teacher. I have had a wonderful life within ATS institutions, and I cheer others on as we continue to work for equality and excellence within ATS schools and in the society at large.
Thank you very much, Mary, for that presentation. Sally McFaig, of course, was a giant in our broader field of theological education. Though she passed away in November of 2019, her impact will be long and broadly felt. We celebrate her as the inaugural recipient of this award, recognizing a woman leader's outstanding contribution to the work of theological education. We also have now a second award to recognize the Distinguished Service Award. It is directed to the member. I want to direct the membership to page 10 on the program book. You will see there a description of the Distinguished Service Award, and you'll also see there past recipients of this award. Let me at this time invite our Executive Director, Frank Imada, who will present this year's award. Frank.
You're muted, Frank.
You would think that after all these Zoom meetings that I would remember that one. The Distinguished Service Award is an award that is given every 2 years at the biennial meeting to honor persons who have contributed in extraordinary ways to the association's mission to promote the improvement and enhancement of theological schools to the benefit of communities of faith and the broader public. The award is bestowed with the recognition that theological education is a shared vocation and all who invest themselves in it contribute to its quality and well-being. From time to time, however, there appear in our midst persons of exceptional vision, leadership, and influence who advance the causes of our enterprise in very significant ways to the benefit of all. It is such distinguished service that this award is intended to identify and honor. You have in your program book also a list of past recipients, and you can see that this is a very distinguished list indeed of leaders in theological education, including in 2018 during the centennial presentation and the centennial celebration of the Association of Theological Schools, where 3 recipients of the Distinguished Service Award were honored. And they represented the 3 historical ecclesial families of the ATS. And those recipients were John Kinney, Richard Mao, and Ann Anderson. This year's 2020 Distinguished Service Award recipient is Dr. Teet Tianu. Dr. Tianu is the research professor of theology of mission and the chair of global theology and world Christianity at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. Previously, he served as president and dean at a school in West Africa, and he is also taught at the Alliance Theological Seminary in Nyack, New York. While pastor of the church, he also founded and directed the Maranatha Institute. He is an active participant in numerous conferences and special lectureships and has contributed many articles to the scholarly journals. Dr. Tianu's areas of expertise include mission, theology, and the church in Africa. He has authored numerous books and articles, including The Theological Task of the Church in Africa, published in both English and French, and in the African Journal of Evangelical Theology. He has written numerous articles and has served in many capacities, both for the association and in the commission. Most recently, Dr. Tianu was a member of the redevelopment task force, whom we honored earlier in the commission session. Dr. Tianu has also served on the board of commissioners and is one of the most frequent visitors of ATS accrediting visits. So for his service, this award is given in distinguished service to the Association of Theological Schools, to Dr. Tianu. To present this award and to offer his recipient's speech, we have a video from Dr. Tianu and from Dr. Moore, who will be presenting it to him. Again, if you have trouble viewing this video, there is a link in the chat that you can view it through our Canvas site, and it will also be posted in ATS Engage and on ATS website. So to the video.
Distinguished Service Award to our colleague and my friend, Reverend Dr. Professor Tianu. The award, as you can read in your program booklet, distinguishes persons of exceptional vision, leadership, and influence who have advanced the causes of global theological education. Professor Tianu has done the usual things: went to university, completed a PhD, pastored, taught in seminary, wrote articles and books, and served as dean at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School in Chicago. But he has also done unusual things. He is the founding director, president, dean of Maranatha Bible Institute in Bobo Dioulasso, Burkina Faso, and Faculté de Théologie Évangélique de l'Alliance Chrétienne in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. In 2013, colleagues published a Fechtschrift in his honor, Communities of Faith in Africa and the African Diaspora, with additional essays on world Christianity. Professor Tianu embodies our ATS value of global awareness and engagement. He is a past member of the Executive Committee of WCATI, World Conference of Associations of Theological Institutes, board chair of ACTIA, Accrediting Council for Theological Education in Africa, and chair of ICET, International Council of Accrediting Agencies. He has served us here at ATS as chair of CHAOS, the Chief Academic Officer Society, member of the Board of Commissioners, and most recently on the Standards Redevelopment Task Force, in addition to having chaired a bunch of ATS accreditation visits. His interest and involvement in global theological education continues, both at Trinity, where he holds the Tianu Chair of Global Theology and World Christianity, and is director of the Paul G. Hebert Center for World Christianity and Global Theology, and beyond, in his roles as a member of the Board of Directors for the Overseas Missions Study Center and the Center for East African Christianity, among others. Dr. Tianu describes the current chapter of his life as a time when he desires to contribute to enhancing the quality of theological education in the majority world, particularly where doctoral programs are beginning. He is helping to prepare faculty for mentoring doctoral students and institutions with their broader issues in board leadership and governance. Two nuggets of wisdom for theological education from Professor Tianu. First, the mission of theological education in all its modalities is this: knowing God, loving God, and serving God. Knowing God, loving God, and serving God. And second, what I have heard him often say as 3 words to describe a dean or a leader's vocabulary: grateful, begging, and repentant. Grateful, always be thankful. Begging, we are dependent upon others as a leader. And repentant, we do not make all the right decisions all the time. And on a personal note, Teet is a reluctant disciple of Jesus Christ, in his own words, compelled by his mother's prayers to enter Christian ministry. He knew enough about God at age 8 that if you say yes one time, you need to keep saying yes. So he resisted until age 16 when God distinctly spoke, "Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your heart." Here, he consciously first said yes and brought his fagot to God, dedicating his life to Christian ministry. Teet, in his own words, didn't set out to be a Christian or to be in education, but he soon realized as he kept saying yes to God, that God would clarify the next steps. Teet, we are all the better for you saying yes. That's okay. God is in charge. Thank you for listening to him. Dr. Tianu, please join me. Congratulations.
Well, I do not know, Dr. Moore, where you got all of these things. So my first word, if I listen carefully to my colleague and friend, Dr. James Moore, my first word is one of gratitude. I'm grateful to him for all the discoveries that he made me realize as he spoke to us on behalf of all of you, colleagues and friends in theological education in the world of the Association of Theological Schools in the US and Canada. Indeed, I'm grateful to him and I'm grateful to all of you for the honor that has been bestowed on me for this Distinguished Service Award. I do not consider myself with anything close to what he said. He has entire responsibility for some of the crazy things he said about me. But this is a great time to be in theological education. If there is any time to be in theological education globally, it is now. Now is a time to know God, to love him, to serve him well everywhere in the world. So in this year, 2020, with all the upheavals that we witness both here on this side of geography and around the world, may God encourage each and every one of us to be faithful in the service of theological education for a better world. Thank you.
On behalf of the association, Teet, let me also offer congratulations as the recipient of the 2020 Distinguished Service Award. I want to thank you for decades of exemplary service to the Association of Theological Schools and to the Commission on Accrediting. We are grateful. Thank you. We are coming to that time where we are approaching adjournment. I want to ask if our executive director has any final words for us before we move in that direction. Frank?
I did not, Brian, but I did want to thank all of those who are on this call for the association for this once in a generation vote that we took on the commission, that we affirm also on the association side. I also wanted to just say this is a first as well for the association in having an online meeting, and wanted to offer my thanks and gratitude to the staff who have helped to pull this off. And to you, Brian, for your leadership as you are stepping down as president of the ATS Board of Directors. Thank you for your exemplary leadership and for chairing this meeting.
Thank you very much, Frank. Let me also offer my thanks and appreciation to all of the staff at ATS and all the persons behind the background who were working with them. It is a wonderful staff at ATS. I have enjoyed thoroughly my time over these past 4 years as vice president and now president of the board, working with such exemplary people, and especially let me highlight our executive director, Frank. I think the efficiency and the way in which we move through these wonderful set of meetings is a testimony to the wonderful leadership that he has given to the association in his time. So thank you all at the ATS offices for everything that you do. We are deeply grateful. And I look forward at this point to handing the baton off to Mark Young, who will take his beginning at the end of this meeting to begin as president of the board. Let me also note that we need to have one final motion, and that final motion would be a call for a motion to adjourn. And so I see Chris Corte has come back in looking for hands up. Do you see any?
I do. I have Jonathan Riches, who's moved, and Douglas Rutt, who was seconded.
So we have a motion and a second. Let us now call. Are there any questions to that? Presuming none, let us call for the vote. Please vote. You see the poll before you. I am going to call 30 seconds. And our voting is now closed. Let me ask Jeffrey Kent if he, as judge of elections, would give us one final report.
Yes, the motion to adjourn has passed.
The motion to adjourn is passed. Thank you very much, Jeffrey, and thank you to every one of you who has been a part of these set of meetings over the last 2 days. Let me now offer a benediction. Let us go forth into the world in justice and peace, dedicated to God's service and the service of God's people in this important and transformational task of theological education. Let us hold fast that which is good, render no person evil for evil, strengthen the faint-hearted, support the weak, assist the afflicted, educate the curious, bring justice for the oppressed, and honor all people. And may God's blessing be upon us and remain with us always. Amen.